Dragon Age Origins is one of the best RPGs to have ever released. There's just one issue with it. It plays terribly. It also looks really bad. And it barely works on modern hardware. Those are actually 3 issues. You know what there's also 3 of in this game? Races. You can play as 3 races. A colonizer, a twink, or the vertically handicapped. You'll choose one of these 3 races to embark on an adventure in which you'll be the hero, fight the monsters, and slay the dragons. It's essentially just like every other medieval setting you've already seen 100 times already. But now with romance scenes, which look like they've been made with a fucking folia. The story starts off differently depending on which race you choose. For example, the human has their castle taken and their family brutally murdered. The city elf has their alienage attacked, their spouse murdered and their cousins sexually assaulted. The noble dwarf has their own brother betray them and then gets cast out. This may all seem very dark, but trust me, it's gonna get much worse. No matter which race you choose, they all end up getting recruited by 2009's version of GigaChat, Duncan.
There's no turning back.
Duncan explains to you that Ferelden, the kingdom you live in, is kind of falling apart a little bit at the moment, due to some black-faced goblins calling themselves, or I suppose we call them that, Darkspawn, tainting the earth with their goo, and it's up to you, him, and his supposed army of hundreds of Grey Wardens, even though we only see like 12 of them in a camp, to stop them. Duncan drags your ass all the way from your home to Ostagar, where the bulk of the where the bulk of the Darkspawn horde will collide with King Kaelin's army and introduces you to Alistair, the Leon from this universe, twice as handsome and twice as stupid. Alistair is a Grey Warden already, whilst you and the other 2 recruits, David and Jory, who for whatever reason can't seem to stop staring at you, are not. Or at least not yet, as Daddy D will change that ASAP by sending the 4 of you into the Kokori Wilds for 2 important tasks.
The first is to obtain 3 vials of Darkspawn blood. It has recently come to our attention that some scrolls have been left behind. Alistair, I want you to retrieve these scrolls if you can.
Enter the forest, fight some Darkspawn, figure out the treaties have been stolen, and then realize why everybody who owned this game at the time who was under the age of 18 developed a god fetish. This is Morrigan, and her mother, Flemeth, kept the treaties in her possession for safekeeping. After an innocent initiation session, you find out that the other recruits have absolutely 0 riz, dead ass, and you're the only one who can handle the sauce for real. You see, to become a Grey Warden, you need to let the Darkspawn enter you. You need to drink their blood to be able to sense them and fight them properly, but as you can see, most people do not handle this ritual very well. After the ritual, the king and his counselors want to meet with you. One of these counselors, and also army leader, is called Loghain, and is also the Terran of Gwaren and the commander of the Ferelden army, who will totally not betray you and gives off 0 vibes to do so.
Yes, Kaelin. A glorious moment for us all.
Yeah, he betrays everybody and you're the only 2 who survive. He was supposed to flank the Darkspawn after you and Alistair lit the beacon on this tower, but he refused. The army gets slaughtered and you and Alistair are the only ones who survive.
Hey, you.
How, you may ask? Well, you get saved by Flemeth, who still thinks she's hilarious. Flemeth thinks that there's a blight about to happen, which is essentially when the Darkspawn do a Pimp My Ride episode on a dragon, turning it into an archdemon, which is bad. So she urges you to use the treaties to create an army and save the world. But before that, she leaves you with one final gift.
You will be joining them.
Such a shame. What?
You set out to the nearest town, where you'll pick up this fine fellow who didn't really get the memo on how to sell himself.
You will find it difficult to move me if I choose not to follow you.
If you saved this dog in Ostagar, you can also take him, and on top of that, this religious zealot who you would have never in 100 years have taken with you if it wasn't for 2 very obvious, let's call them plot-related reasons. From here on out, you have got 4 options on where to go. You can go to the mages in the Mage Tower, to Arl Eamon, who is the uncle of the recently killed King Kaelin in Redcliffe, the Dalish elves in the Brazilian forest, or the dwarves in Orzammar. Arriving at Redcliffe, you are informed that Eamon has been poisoned, and you cannot get to him to check up on him as the village is overrun by zombies. In hindsight, some of these things sound really cliché and nonsensical when you recap it like this, but I swear, when you play it yourself, it flows together really well. You get pulled aside by Alistair, who confides in you his biggest secret. He is the long-lost son of King Merrick, the father of King Kaelin, which by blood right makes him the first in line for the throne. More on this later. This doom scenario in the village leaves you with the option to either help them or, well, not. If you don't, they kinda die. If you do, the village survives the onslaught, resulting in Tegan, Eamon's brother, and therefore also Caelan's uncle, showing you a hidden path into the castle to try and rescue Eamon. On a side note, Tegan is an absolute G, and also, essentially, the only one who stood up to Loghain when he tried to take over the political power in Denerim, Ferelden's capital, by dropping this absolute mic drop on Queen Enora, the widow of the recently betrayed and killed King Caelan, and on top of that, daughter of Loghain.
Antigon, my father is doing what is best.
Did he also do what was best for your husband, Your Majesty?
After entering the castle, you discover a guy called Chowan in the dungeons and escape the apostate. It's like a mage who's on the run, and he admits he's the one who poisoned the Arl. He was actually hired in the first place by Eamon's wife Isolde to teach Eamon's son about magic, without him knowing anything about it, as open magic use is forbidden and frowned upon. But Loghain made Chowan poison the Arl instead. You fight your way to their, by now, possessed son Connor, who's a freaky ass kid to say the least. From here, you're left with some options. You can use blood magic to heal Connor, and by doing so, you'll kill Isolde. You can use a ritual from the Mage Tower, if you've gone to visit them first to try and heal Connor, or just fight him here right now. After which, Isolde will obviously try to interfere. Without success. After this is resolved, Eamon is still in La La Land unfortunately, and for him to wake up, his knights advise you to seek out the Urn of Sacred Ashes. A brother named Genevieve was working on finding out where the urn was located, so you visit his home in Denerim. After snooping around in his house, you discover that his butler has been replaced with a doppelganger. You learn from his notes that Genevieve left for a village called Haven, and Haven is a weird little village. The writers were trying to make it apparent by the fact that this small village had a male priest, trying to make alarm bells go off for the player, as in the world of Dragon Age only female priests exist. To me, it was apparent however, as everybody was trying to make you fucking leave within the first 4 minutes after arriving.
What are you doing in Haven? There's nothing for you here.
If you prod around too much, the town will attack you, but after defeating them, you will find an injured Genevieve in a hidden back room. He tells you that the urn is indeed located here, and that you can go and look for it with a hidden key from the priest who was defending the town. After this conversation, roughly 4,872 fights will ensue in the dungeons of the village, which I'm gonna fast forward. When you finally fucking reach the urn, there's a spirit guarding the entrance who wants you to solve 8 riddles before you can enter. These are just your typical word riddles like,
I'd neither a guest nor a trespasser be.
A poison of the soul, passion's cruel counterpart.
I'm a fraction of the population, but I commit half the crimes.
After the door opens, all that's left is this bridge puzzle in which you have to make platforms appear by standing on certain panels on the ground. I will now show you the quickest way to do this. First, you want to step onto this platform. Make sure that your party is on hold mode, and then you want to click Alt and Tab to open a YouTube guide, because fuck this puzzle. You reach the urn, take the ashes and head back to Eamon to heal him. After this, he advises you to keep gathering allies while he starts throwing out leads to see what he can do to stop Loghain from gathering more power. Next, when you arrive at the Mage Tower, you find out shit is falling apart because, well, what a surprise. Demons from the Fade is like hell, but not entirely, escaped and started wreaking havoc on the Templars, the supposed defenders and essentially babysitters of the mages. You enter the tower and find the reason everybody who owned this game at the time who were already past the age of 18 developed a fetish, whom you will use to fight your way towards the top of the tower with. When you reach the halfway point, you run into this demon, who sends all of your characters into a deep sleep, after which you end up in the Fade. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, normally this section takes like half a day to finish. It's well known as one of the worst, if not the worst, level designs of the entire series. I only finished it once, years ago, and after that I found this mod that makes me completely skip all of it. Yeah. Fast forward to the ending, and you'll find this Templar called Cullen who informs you that the demons are turning the mages into abominations inside the harrowing chamber, and you're left with 2 options. Mage, termination, or act like nothing happened and go on your merry way. Yeah, you might need some more context for this. Okay, so normally mages all have to go through something called the harrowing, a test in the Fade to see if they can resist the temptations demons offer them. Seeing as how the entire tower has now been overrun, every mage is at risk of having a demon inside of them.
Pause!
So circling back to that decision, you either let them all die, or yeah, you just act like nothing happened and you recruit them. I shit you not, those are your options. When you reach the last floor of the tower, a fight breaks out between your party and senior enchanter Uldred and his demons. If you save them, you can decide to recruit them, and if you don't, you recruit the Templars, but not after Wynne speaks out her disagreement about your decision and tries to stop you. Keyword being tries. By now, you've got 2 armies at your disposal already, making Loghain kinda sad. He hires an assassin called Saffron to unalive you.
Are you sure about that?
Which fails miserably, after which you can either ironically unalive him or just recruit him. Next. Fairies. Next. Okay, right. The leader of the Dalish elves, called Satrium, tells you that if you go into the forest and help kill a werewolf leader called Witherfang, that a curse that has been bothering his people will be lifted, because only after this has been done, he has the manpower to actually help you. In the forest, you run into Darkspawn, half-dead scouts and elves who've been turned into werewolves by the curse already, hammering home the fact that this supposed disease is spreading and inflicting all who come in contact with it very quickly. When you reach the werewolf's lair though, it's blocked off, meaning that you cannot enter. Investigate the forest further, and you'll eventually run into a walking tree who informs you that his favorite acorn has been stolen by a mad magical thief. I swear the story is good, alright, don't laugh. And that he'll reward you with a way to traverse through the forest unharmed if you get it back. When you find said thief, you can either try and wiggle the acorn out of his possession by continuously asking and answering questions in a back and forth vocal battle, or you can piss on his tent and kill him. I chose the latter. Bring the acorn back to the tree and he'll give you a piece of his wood that allows you to get to Witherfang's lair. In the lair, you'll fight spiders, skeletons and a dragon. And after all of this, you'll finally be finding the uber furry Witherfang herself. But he is not what he appeared to be at first, meaning that he's a she. And she is thick as fuck. She starts yapping about, I don't know, whatever. I wasn't paying attention. But she sends you back to Sathrion to tell him to go fuck himself. He's already waiting at the entrance, as he wanted some of that furry wussy as well. So you all go back together to see what's possible. Unfortunately, here though, you find out that Sathrion bound these werewolves to this curse himself, as humans, centuries ago, tortured his son and raped his daughter. But the werewolves currently in the forest are not the original criminals who committed this crime. They are just some unfortunates who wandered into the forest since the crime had been committed and the curse had started. Nonetheless, Sathrion refuses to lift the curse, so you can choose one of the following. You can fight Sathrion and force him to unbind the ritual, or you can fight the werewolves and wipe them out, lifting the curse. For this run, I sided with the werewolves, as Sathrion is a dickhead, resulting in him lifting the curse and all of the werewolves being able to return to their lives normally. With the curse gone, the remaining Dalish elves get healed, so you can recruit them as your third army and move on to...
I'm coming for you!
Travel to Orzammar, fight the, for no apparent reason, most unbalanced, most out of place and most difficult fight of the entire game at the entrance, and learn at the gate that the dwarves are fighting amongst each other because they always are, as their king died and they cannot decide on who the follow-up to the throne should be.
Orzammar has no king.
There are two options. Harrowmont, who wants you to investigate why all of his fighters have dropped out of the Proving. The Proving is like Dwarven Mortal Kombat. And Balin, who wants you to deliver promissory notes to some lords, proving Harrowmont's false claims to the throne. In any case, you end up having to choose one of the two, and to prove your dedication and trust to either one, you have to fight in the Proving as either Balin or Harrowmont's champion, because if you don't, neither will trust you enough to even meet with you in the first place. After winning, one of the two will meet you and tell you that the assembly is like Dwarven Congress, won't send out troops to help fight the Blight unless the underground crime scene in Orzammar has been destroyed. And guess who has to go out of his way to do that?
I will require your assistance one last time.
In the Dwarven slums, you can do a little bribing and a little fighting to find out that the leader of the underground Dwarven scene is called Jarvia, and how you can get to her. Before we get into that though, there's something you should know about Orzammar. It fucking sucks. It's just fight after fight after fight after fight after fight after fight. When you finally reach Jarvia, she attacks you. From previous experience, we've learned that this tends to be not such a good idea. And you report back to whatever lord you chose that she's dead. And they're happy with you. For like 40 seconds.
I will require your assistance one last time.
Afterwards, he informs you that even though the underground crime scene has been taken care of, the assembly still cannot send out armies as long as there's no king. And well, they obviously cannot choose who should be king. The only one who can then make this decision is a paragon. It's like a dwarven messiah, but the latest paragon, called Branka, left for the Deep Roads, which is the brooding place of all of the Darkspawn. And guess who's got to go in there to find her? You see, Branka left for the Deep Roads and searched for something called the Anvil of the Void, a device used by the dwarves to create golems to fight with them during the First Blight. Before you head out though, you run into a wall. You run into a dwarf called Ogrim, who was the husband of Branka, so you take him along to go find her. When you reach the Deep Roads, guess what we'll be doing there? Fight after fight after fight after fight. To make it even more fun, on top of the constant fighting, you'll never know where to go. Around every corner there's Darkspawn mages flinging disease and fire your way every 5 seconds. There are multiple dead ends and spiders and... I'm just gonna fast forward like 5 hours of gameplay. After fight 9,006,000, you meet a guy called Cardle, who knows how to kite and bait enemies, which automatically makes him simultaneously the smartest but also my favorite character in the entire game. He and his so-called Legion of the Dead constantly prowl the Deep Roads finding the Darkspawn, and he informs you that they're gonna hold this bridge as from this point out it gets even more hairy than it already was. And you know what that means. After some more hours of non-stop torture, fighting, you start hearing voices. You're probably delusional and also delirious at this point from all of the fighting, but rest assured, these voices are coming from the actual game, not inside your head. More specifically, from this lady named Hespit. Hespit tells you that Branka allowed the members of her expedition to be captured by Darkspawn in order to breed more of them. You see, the original creator of the Anvil of the Void left traps so that no one could reach the Anvil ever again, and she needed bodies to be thrown at the traps. If that on its own wasn't enough to make you absolutely hate her, also know that she left Ogran for someone else. Not another man though, she left him for a woman. Yeah, she's quite the character. How did they create these bodies? Well, the Darkspawn essentially violates a woman for weeks on end until she turns into this. After a grueling fight, you push on to finally meet Caradin and Branka in a face-off, and even though you really need this woman to fuck the Blight, fuck her. You can side with her, sure, but I chose Caradin, after which you unalive Branka and you and Caradin destroy the Anvil, which he celebrates in a very unique way. Namely, unaliving himself. I told you this game would get darker. Thankfully, before his death, he created a crown for you, which you can give to whoever ruler you like, after which he will be crowned king and he can finally give you the army you need. So, why did we do all of this again? Oh yeah, to gather allies and head off to Denerim. After arriving in Denerim, Eamon calls 4 of the Landsmeet to try and usurp Loghain. Shortly after, we get contacted by Anora's maid that Loghain has locked her up in How, one of his counselors, his castle, and he doesn't trust her anymore. You break in, disguised as guards, and learn that How is in the dungeons with the key to her cell. After persuading
Make her spit on you.
How to give it up, you free some other prisoners in the dungeons who can be of use in the Landsmeet later, and this trapped Grey Warden called Riordan. You free the queen, but unfortunately you get caught by his other counselor, this woman, who throws you in jail, after which you can try to escape or wait for your companions to save you. When arriving back at Eamon's place, you get informed that there's been a lot of unrest in the Elven alienage, and they suspect Loghain to be a part of it. On arrival, you hear that there's a supposed plague spreading in the alienage, but when poking around a bit, you quickly notice that things are not what they seem. A fight ensues, and the farther you push into the supposed healers of this place their hideout, the more you start to realize that they're just slavers trying to take as many of the elves with them as possible. When defeating their leader and telling him that you are sticking up for the elves, this genius thought that his best course of action to get out of this alive was to offer you to sacrifice all of the remaining elves to increase your strength, which you unsurprisingly refuse. You take his documents as proof that Loghain was the one who set this whole ordeal up in the first place. Now that you have plenty of proof of Loghain's crimes, you can start charging him for them at the Landsmeet. If you investigated the city properly and found enough of Loghain's crimes, you can win over the Landsmeet without fighting. If you don't, a fight will ensue, which, you know, you kinda have to win so that you don't die? After taking everybody down, the Chantry and remaining Landsmeet officials will call for a truce, and the following solution: a duel between the two self-acclaimed rulers, Alistair and Loghain, which you also kinda need to win. You can fight it with your main character, but if you let Alistair do it, there's only one outcome to this scenario. And to wrap all of that up, depending on your choices, either Alistair or Honora will be proclaimed king or queen. Unless you make them marry each other, which, yes, that is an option, but we're not going into that. There are a lot of options in this game, alright? It's hard to summarize something like this. And then things get a little bit weird from here. You see, we are currently in Denerim, but Eamon left the second the Landsmeet was over to go back to Redcliffe to gather his army, which seems like something a messenger could have done as well, but sure. For whatever reason, you also need to head over there to see, I don't know, if he's doing alright. While you arrive there though, Darkspawn are attacking it, and after clearing them out, you find out the actual Darkspawn horde is currently on its way to Denerim, even though you just came from there. So now, we have to race back there, but we might not make it. If that is not bad enough, we suddenly find out from Riordan that the entire reason only we as Grey Wardens can end the Blight is because we kinda die when we kill an Archdemon. But there's a catch, as Morrigan suddenly shows up the night before battle, telling you that if you, and I shit you not, impregnate her with a child, the taint of the Archdemon will be allocated to said child, meaning that no Wardens have to die when ending this Blight, which is absolutely disgusting and obviously no option whatsoever. After impregnating Morrigan, all of the armies race off to Denerim for one big final battle to end this Blight once and for all. After your arrival, you hear from Riordan that the best plan to kill the Archdemon is to lure it out by climbing Fort Dragon. I know, ironic. You and a small party will make your way there, where the rest of them stays behind to hold the gates to the city. You fight your way through multiple parts of the city, which are now on fire, which the game's frame rate really likes. You can beeline it directly to Fort Dragon, or help out as many of the people trapped in the city as you can, simultaneously taking down as many of the Darkspawn commanders as possible. In the meanwhile, Riordan went for a I'm the main character move, which backfired a little bit. You fight your way through hordes and hordes of Darkspawn, whilst calling on your newly formed armies on the fly, and after pushing through the entire city, you finally reach the fort. Here, the final and technically only fight with the Archdemon will take place. And it's anticlimactic, as you've got like 100 troops to help you, and he apparently forgot the fact that he's a dragon and that he can fly, so he just stands still 90% of the time. Get his health bar to 0, and either you or Alistair will slice him open from neck to navel, officially ending this Blight. If you took up on Morrigan's offer, neither you nor Alistair will die. If you refused her, you are gay. In the credits, you'll find out that the following years will get spent clearing out the last Darkspawn. All of your companions will go their own way and share their directions with you, with only Morrigan being the exception, as she disappeared out of nowhere and no one knows where she went. This, however, will get explained in the DLC, called Awakening. But do you want to see me summarize that as well? Do you want me to summarize Dragon Age 2? Let me know.
I was just thinking.
No wonder it took so long then.